We're on chapter 20 now, the lymphatic system, with lymphoid organs, with lymphoid tissues. And I'm flipping the page right there. We're starting on page 752, and we're getting the big overview here, where we're looking at the circulatory system, arterial system coming down, capillaries, venous system coming back this way. And then we're noticing that we have little helpers right here. So we have the lymphatic end vessels, is what they're called. These are the, and these are blood capillaries, but they're interspersed here with lymphatic capillaries that are also called end vessels because they actually end in, just they come to an end, as it were. Okay, and then when they're drawing blood up, the blood will be filtered in these devices right here. Here they're showing us a valve. Okay, so on the way up they have valves so that we don't have retrograde flow. We're following the little arrows here upward, but a part of the upward flow is going to have us run into these lymph nodes. The lymph nodes then will filter everything, and then finally the lymph fluid returns to the venous blood right here, right before we get to the heart. Okay, so that's part of the program. What are we doing with the lymphatic system is we're engaged in immune surveillance. Okay, so I need to present to you an overview, of course, of what that really means in the cellular respect. And we had that little work up before, but I'll do it again for you in part 2 here. Okay, this is part 1 where we're still looking at morphology. And here, of course, we have the wonderful lymphatics, which are helping. How do they really help, though, is that they actually can take on mass uptake because they have these little mini valves here. Notice that we're having these little laminar proteins here that are holding the vessel to the surrounding tissue to keep it in place. Okay, that's an important detail. We still have endothelial tissue here, which means this is simple squamous epithelium, just like any capillary. We have these flap-like mini valves. Okay, a little bit of pressure, you push down on your skin, and you're actually pushing lymphatic or interstitial fluid. You're forming lymph from the interstitial fluid is what you're doing. Okay, so any sort of cellular breakdown, any particulate material could, of course, end up there. There could also be pathogens which enter into their bacteria or virus particles, etc. Okay, and so we'll be able to do some immune surveillance should there be anything of the foreign antigen persuasion. Okay, here's the big overview again in terms of gross anatomy, and here this gentleman is sort of color-coded to indicate the flow of lymph. It turns out that we have 2 completely different channels. We have in the sort of more red-colored areas of the human body, which of course has some bilateral symmetry here on the left side, but also once we get below the diaphragm, it's the everything down here. It's all going to flow into the cisterna chyli, this little pool right here, which leads to this next unit here, which is the thoracic duct. The thoracic duct ultimately ends up pouring its lymphatic fluid right into this location right here. Okay, so we're pouring it in, the entrance of the thoracic duct pouring into the subclavian, where the subclavian is sort of joining up here with the brachiocephalic, that location. Over here on the other side, on this greenish side, we have an entirely different format. And here at this return point, we have something called the right lymphatic duct that's going to be the return mechanism for this entire watershed here of lymphatic fluid. It's going to end up right here and return. So basically all of the fluid of the body, all of the interstitial fluid between the cells is going to circulate. Okay, so You're not going out for a daily walk or run or bike ride for nothing. You're actually getting, how shall I say, cleansing, because you're moving the fluid of the body throughout the body. You might have puffy feet or ankles in the morning, but then after you've had your nice workout for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it was, they had fun under the sky, yeah, then you're moving the fluid back in your feet, or you look down at your feet and you go, oh, the skin is right next to all the underlying structures now. Okay, so if we look at the lymph nodes in various areas, they're sort of pointing that out to us in this diagram. Cervical lymph nodes throughout this region right through here are to be experienced in an upper respiratory infection. We have additional lymph nodes, chains coming down between the lungs that provide us with lymph nodes for lower respiratory infections. We also have breasts which drain to the axilla this way, and the arm is coming up into the axilla where we have axillary nodes. Okay, so those are some of the main nodes up there. Then we have some large nodes in the abdominal region, and then we have large nodes right here that are in the inguinal region, inguinal nodes. Remember that I mentioned to you before that we have a little saying that we say, NAVEL, femoral nerve, artery, vein, empty space, lymphatics. In fact, the lymphatics are much closer to the groin here in this region. These are the inguinal nodes. In historical times, we had something called the bubonic plague, and these were enlarged nodes in this region were referred to as buboes. Okay, that's just an old term for the inflammation of these nodes at the time of the bubonic plague. Okay, Yersinia pestis was the pathogen carried by rats that would nip at the ankles, as it were, and transmit. The rats were the vector for the pathogen. Okay, then we can come and take a very close look here at the, here's the cisterna chyli, that famous little pool here that collects all of the lymphatic fluid in a central location and forms the very beginning of the thoracic duct. So over here we have the thoracic duct. It's coming up. It's literally right against the bony structure here of the bodies of the vertebra, right there. It's just right up against it. And then it comes around, it circles around here, and it empties into the, where are we here? It's supposed to be emptying right there. And who's pointing to here it is, entrance of the thoracic duct into the vein, right there. Okay, and then if you look on this side over here, then you'll discover that there is a right lymphatic, and it is emptying right into the vein right here, the right lymphatic duct, just the way you like it. Okay, then we come over and we talk about lymphatic transport here, and basically this is a passive transport system, even more passive than the venous system. So we have to consider here the idea of venous return that has much to do with actually the pressure. We have the prevention of backflow due to valves, which is an important detail, but mainly we have just movement. We have muscle pumping as well as respiratory pumping. So when you move your body, you're moving your lymphatic fluid. And of course there's body work techniques, whether it's Swedish massage or whatever. You can self-massage as much as you want, and it's always very helpful. Okay, so we need to look up next what are the actual lymphoid cells. So we're going to be looking at T cells, B cells, and macrophages. Those are our primary lymphatic cells for carrying out the work of immune surveillance. So let's take a look at those.